who I am is at 42 still an ongoing discovery, as I like to say. I still say I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I'm figuring it out. Long story short, terrible student as a child. And what do terrible students do? They become teachers. So I became a teacher. I ended up teaching high school totally by mistake. Just had someone come in, one of my former teachers actually, and say, hey, do you want to substitute teach? I said, absolutely. Fell in love with it. Taught for the better part of a decade, taught ethics and Bible, ended up getting my master's in educational technology, which again is ironic. And after I got my master's, I was like, wow, this is expensive. I got to pay for this. And my wife was having another baby. So I got an administrative job. It's so funny. You were just talking about going from the classroom to administration. I did that. And the administrative job I got out was actually at a school that was hiding a startup in there.
Oh boy!
And it was a learning management system, and it was it's in my book, so you can read all about it. Not to plug it, but that's a long story. But I was scared, but we ended up growing into about 38 different states. Got investment from a guy by the name of Wayne Huizinga, which once again, being from South Florida, if you're listening to this, you know Wayne. If not, he's the guy that didn't found Blockbuster, but really took it over and grew it. Waste management. Used to own the Miami Dolphins. And I got promised a lot of things: stock options, my own private plane, equity in the company. I got none of that. Got to fly on Wayne's private 747 jet, which if you ever drove past Fort Lauderdale Airport there, the big one with the Dolphins logo on it back in the day that was there. But at the end of the day, learned a lot and said, hey, I can either go back to the classroom administrative job, stay in education, or I think I could help people that want to start educational companies. And that's where I started, helping educational companies grow and scale. And over the last 10 years, it's grown into all different types of companies. I've worked, from oil and gas, telecommunications, call centers, cigar companies we're working with right now. So just you name it, I've probably worked in all those different industries. And that's why I say I don't have to decide what I want to be when I grow up, because if I'm interested in the industry, I'm like, let me go find a client there and I'll test it out. And that's really something that I've enjoyed. And a little nutshell to I'm kind of like an outsourced COO, if you will, is how I've labeled it. But we focus on marketing, sales, and implementation, the three things any business needs.
Marketing, sales, and implementation. So let's break down some of those, okay? First of all, what is historically or these days the most fun industry that you like working with? What kind of people? Or is it a certain, departments within most industry? Because business is business, right? But where are you living? What's your jam these days?
And this is a bit of a generality. We'll start there and we'll get a little more specific. I love female entrepreneurs and business owners. Yep. I mean, they're the best to work with, and I kid around and say, and maybe I'll get in trouble for this, but they ask for directions, right? Like they're willing to say, hey, where do I go? We're working with some of the male entrepreneurs. They're very, I got this. I know what I'm doing. It's the next, I'm a disruptor, where female entrepreneurs, I just found they're collaborators. And a lot of the businesses, in the educational space I've worked with, Top Score Writing is one of them right now that we're really blowing up. We do a lot of work in the BPO and call center space, which was big during COVID. So we got to help a lot of people, which I really enjoyed. And, working with clients right now in the, one client in the cigar industry that's doing stuff with tech, to make cigar boxes interactive and smart. So those are kind of the things that I'm really excited about right now. Yeah. It's pretty neat. We're doing some work with Chato Jocinco's 85 cigars, Cigar Blondie, who's in Boca, Ortega as well. So really excited to be working on that because I'm an avid cigar smoker, and that's kind of the fun things I'm working on right now.
So when you talk about sales, marketing, and implementation, then of those three, let's just take those one by one. What are most people getting wrong with each one of those three these days?
I think once again, starting high level, they're either only doing one of those really well. Like you kind of mentioned earlier, they're putting a lot of effort into marketing, or they're putting a lot of effort into always be closing, or they're putting a lot of effort into developing the greatest app that ever exists, but they're not doing all three, right? The businesses that are failing are doing really well in one of those three areas, and businesses that are succeeding, I get around and say they're half-assing those three areas because they're putting the effort into each one. If you're marketing correctly and you're marketing honestly, you're going to generate great leads that you could sell to. If you're being honest with your sales leads and you're qualifying them and you're making sure they work and you're closing the right type of clients, you're going to be able to deliver on what you say you're doing. And if your implementation process and customer support is there after the sale, I hear so many sales guys say, not my problem. I throw it over to the implementation team, and then they got to deal with it. If that's the case, if you really don't have good customer service and you're not there, I've seen people with a terrible product and great customer service win over a great product with terrible customer service every time. And it's a tough market. So I would say in the general aspect, that's what I see with a lot of those companies, and that's how some of the smaller companies I've worked with have been able to take down the big boys.
So how do you go about doing the assessment and figuring out what's broken?
Yeah. I mean, it's a simple thing. I love SWOT analysis, right? We come in with that, and it keeps everyone
Strength,
honest. It's in
weakness,
black and white.
opportunities, and threats.
Opportunity and threats. Yep. And that's usually the way I can see. And then it's tell me your story, right? And you mentioned something earlier when you talked about marketing. It comes down to messaging.
Yeah.
One of the first things we do with our clients on the marketing side is we create a message map, and that message map lets them really explain well what they do. So many companies like, well, what do you do? And they go right into this like verbal diarrhea of just like, well, we do this and blah 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 blah. We have
here's 1,001 ways we help people.
Yeah, we can change what time the sun sets, and I mean just everything that they can do, and who they're helping, and what their charity cause. Whoa, like let's get this. So Alicia, who's my Alicia, who's my business partner, is amazing. She's got a lot of experience in the corporate area, and she used to be a reporter. She always says in PR, it's the 5 things, right? So on your 5 fingers on the back of your hand, as you're talking about what you do, you should almost be able to tap each finger and hit on those points as you're going through. And it should be quick and be able to do that. That's the first thing we do is get the message concise. And once we do that, everything else builds off of that. Everything on the social strategy, everything on the messaging of what we do, the sales pitch, the close, how we're going to put the sales stages in the CRM, everything really builds off that messaging. And then we, once again, we look at delivering the product, and making sure we're servicing the clients correctly.
So then when it comes down to implementation, is that more on the delivery of the product or the promises that you made on the services, and then how you back it up when they have a problem or when they, even hell, do you have I think implementation also goes so far as to say systems and processes. What's your system to ask for referrals? What's your system for asking for an upsell? All right. Or follow up on a lost sale. What's your system for following up on calling the person back who said no to you 2 months ago? Right, and feeding them some more information, and so that.
Oh, sorry, there was a little bit of delay. I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you. The biggest thing that we deal with now, Jeremy, though, is it's in my head. I've got it. I know. Like I work with them and we do this, and like, whoa, wait a second, and God rest his soul. We had a guy on our team, Jeremy, and not you, but he passed away unexpectedly. Young guy. In his late 40s, passed away unexpectedly. He worked on our team, and I always, I called the Jeremy effect. I'm like, what if something happened tomorrow?
Yeah,
could your business still run? And Jeremy, unfortunately, when he passed away, his whole business fell apart because everything was in his head. He was the only guy doing it. Great guy, super talented. Yeah. But if it's all in your head, or there is no process, that's a loss. Yeah, you know what I mean? That's the biggest thing we have to do is say, okay, how can we even, before you're even doing some of that analysis you talked about, I saw the great spreadsheet you put together and everything you're doing. Most people aren't even like in it. Okay, do we have, we're using something like Trello or Asana or Monday.com to at least track the flow. I don't care if you're a one-man army, solopreneur coach, or whether you're running a multi-million-dollar company. It amazes me how many people are not running things in a process. And we say, okay, let me take it out of your head at least and put it on paper. And then that also frees up whoever that person is, whether we're working with an entrepreneur, whether we're working with, someone in the business, the COO or vice president, like, let's free up some of your time. Let's get you some more free time on the book.
SOPs,
by
baby.
Defining that process. Yeah. And it amazes me how many companies, big and small, I wish I could say it's just the entrepreneurs. You'd be surprised how many large businesses I've seen making 7-8 figures a year. And I'm like, so you mean this is all on a spreadsheet? You got
yeah. I call it the lottery effect. What happens when Brian over there, who runs your whole sales department, wins the lottery and it doesn't come in Monday, who's gonna unlock the door?
I'm Italian, so someone's gonna get whacked eventually.
I know.
I'm always worried about that.
Everyone said, what if I get hit by a bus? Like, why can't the poor kid win the lottery?
What if this guy goes away? What if he's not here anymore? What are we gonna do?
What if someone makes him an offer he can't refuse?
Yeah.
So when you my sister's texting me now. Sorry. When you take those into consideration, if you had all 3 of them FUBAR, do you give any priorities as to where you start?
I mean, I think, are there absolutes? Yes. I always say you might as well go back to square one to start with messaging. I'm really a firm believer in that, because that leads into messaging. It leads into it and also sets your core values in a lot of way, right? Yeah. Because I'll say, okay, but like, wait a second, does that line up with can we do that? Yes. And then what's our core values? Like, what do we believe? What do we want to be as a company? Like, because you only get one at bat. You'll take the swings, but you're only going to get one at bat.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to start there in most cases, right? And sometimes it's not necessary. Sometimes it's just. I mean, there's one business that we're working with right now that I can think of. I mean, they're a subscription business and they're making money hand over fist, but they're a hot mess on the process side, right? And they're like, oh, but we want to fix the marketing. I'm like, you should probably fix the process first, because when we get that marketing firing, because the marketing is going to be easy because we already see that it works. We just need to scale that. But if we do it, we're going to break them on the back end.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It varies on what needs to be done in the different areas and where people work. So it varies, but usually messaging is the first thing.
And I think that for what I've experienced is cash flow is the worst thing. How do you get their cash flow? I mean, yes, you got to start in the messaging, but they need triage. They need an influx of cash, So for that too, that's when you go back to that spreadsheet too, is where are you on your prices? When's the last time you had any sort of price rate hike? And where are you on your expenses? I bet you there's a lot of people, a lot of companies, especially the larger the company, the larger the chances of there's so much waste going out to products and services that you employed or that you could go back easily and renegotiate at this point. And it all adds up. It all adds up. That's why it's the bottom line, because it all goes to that bottom line. And that's the end of the day. Everything you do as an effect on everything else, that's where that exponential growth comes from. So one of the things that I do pride myself on and as being an example, one of the worst questions I was ever asked in an interview was, how do I crush the competition? So I hope that this proves that I don't believe in that. I crush competition, in my head and myself. But bringing people on like you that do almost the exact same thing I do, but you have different software platforms, you have different experiences, you have different history, you have different everything is different. And there's no way that if there was 100,000 of us, just you and me, just duplicates. And that's really what it would take to take all these businesses that have problems and make them better as quickly as we need to. So, I never am worried about, my business has my name on it. My future business has already been decided by the universe. And then, so having people on like this, I hope we get that, I want to be that shepherd that shows people, open up to your competition and they will find you. You'll find out more about yourself by learning more about them in a very transparent way than you will just looking at all the negative and being negative and pushing things down and putting boots on people's necks. That's not the way to win. At the end, I have never found that way. So
I agree with you.
I want to thank you for coming on this show. I took that long way around patting myself on the back, but that was really to say thank you for coming on because you know what we do.
Yeah, and I think too at the end of the day that I always say you'll know when you have to play defense. Like, stop coming out playing defense. Like, how about you score a few points first and then worry about playing
Act
defense?
like you've been there, right?
Everyone's like, it's like, the market may not need defense. You could probably play offense all day, and that's way more fun putting points on the board than it is, fighting off the competition or trying to take them down, or we're better than pizza place down the road. Like, congratulate pizza place down the road. Say, hey, we're so excited to be in the same neighborhood, and hopefully their customers one night come to us. I mean, you win. You get more flies with honey, right?
Yeah.
You do with vinegar, or bees. I think it is. I may be screwed up saying tonight, Jeremy. See, you're not alone.
Tell us a little bit about Socks on a Rooster. Like Socks on a Rooster. I'm gonna go away from us for half a second. I just hate to come back and you not be, but there, I believe that's it. Socks on a Rooster, available at a very reasonable price, a very lucky price, $777 on Amazon. A guide to busting the entrepreneurial cliches that are holding you back. So tell us a little bit about this book. Definitely a lot more about the name, and where did this come about?
Well, it's selling so well that Amazon discounted it from $19.99 to $7. I'm crushing the competition.
Hey, listen, these self publishing stuff is not a game for the faint of heart. But it's really these are $5 business cards. You know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I always laugh when someone says they're an Amazon bestseller. I can take a secret on how that's done too. It's not that difficult. But and that's really why I wrote the book, right? The title is kind of a nod to my father. My father's been my greatest mentor and person in my life that always guided me. And it's the same my dad always used to say when we were kids. So if we had to move a piece, I always say we didn't buy new furniture. My dad just liked to move the furniture around so it seemed like it was new in the house. And it's like I hated moving furniture by the time I was in my teenage years. So it's just like I'm like, Dad, no, I'm not doing it. But every time we get that furniture in the right place, or we get something really right, or we do something well, or like I said, when we got the audio on, he would say like socks on a rooster. And then as I got into my adult life and started teaching, I said it in college a few times, and everybody I think was drinking and on drugs, so they didn't say much about it. But when I started teaching, kids will say something to you. They'll tell you. So I started saying when I was teaching class, and they were like, hey, what does that mean? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That doesn't make any sense. And I started explaining it to them. And when I explained it, they kind of laughed. But then they got it and started to use it. And I feel like in entrepreneurship, we do the same thing. We keep saying these cliche things, and we keep saying, network is your net worth, and all these different things that we don't really know what they mean. And there's a deeper meaning on utilizing and implementing those cliche things instead of just saying them and being, I always say like the cliche parrots you see that are the business coaches, like you said, they're out there. And it's like, yeah, but there's more behind that. So I'm big on debunking and mystifying those. Like I said, your network is my favorite one, because I see all these guys hanging around these high net worth individuals. I'm like, no, you're a groupie. I'm like, there's a difference, right? Like you're in the entourage or you're a groupie, but you're not growing. And there's a big difference between doing that,
Yeah, that's funny because there's also the counter cliche that's always true too. So if your network is your net worth, and you want to be the smartest guy in the room, then you're looking around going, well, shit, I don't want to be the dumbest guy in the room either, right? So there's always that double-sided coin there that you need to hang with people right in the middle there. You want to be a little better than somebody because you want to be helping, and you don't want to be always the head of the class. But some of my favorite ones are Steve Noodleberg's and his 27 Confessions of a Serial Salesman. He's got a couple of them, but they're money, man. He's got them boiled down to the money ones. My favorite is difference between contract and contact is the letter R. And of course that little R stands for relationships. That's my money go-to. And I always give that nod to Steve, but you're right. There's a lot of other ones out there that people use all the time, and they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. They're just so used to pushing it down. So how do you start talking real lingo, real language to the people that you're trying to train or bring up through the systems? How do you break that habit?
It's my favorite word and my least favorite word at the same time, transparency, because I think everybody overuses that one as well. But I think it's like, you don't have to be an expert on everything, and like you said, there's things that I know that I've learned and experiences I've had, and some of them are right, some of them are wrong, some may work for some business, some may work for another. And you do the same thing I do pretty much, but you may have things that you've learned and things that and may help some businesses, may help others. I think it's about understanding that collaboration and listening. It's always, the expression, you have two ears, one mouth.
Yeah.
Listen more than you're talking, and then I say you have two eyes as well. Look what's going on. More than you're talking.
I had
what I mean?
One.
So if you're,
this week I heard one on a TEDx. Be more interested than interesting. Try to be more interested than interesting. I love that one because that one's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think, Brad Lee says that all the time. He said there's this guy that sent him an email, said he had a great conversation with him on a flight. He goes, I didn't say one word to the guy, just kept saying, oh yeah, really? That's interesting. Tell me more. Oh yeah. And he thought he was a great conversationalist, So I think it is about authenticity. I think when you're on social media, and I'm going to call Joseph out a little bit because I saw Joseph Gonzalez comment on there, and I connected with him right away. And he was quick to the draw, man. He sent me a video. He sent me a thank you for connecting. But as soon as I hit play on his video, I got to think, I think this is the biggest mistake most people make on social media. And I applaud Joseph for his effort. I think it's great, but I think he needs to make this one edit to his video. He did the, hey, LinkedIn community. Hey, you guys. Hey, how everybody doing? He went with the broad audience. Here I thought I was getting a personal message from him, and I'm like, oh man, it's a broad audience. All he needs to change is one thing on there, because who's looking at that video on their phone? It's just me. Like when he says, you guys, I look behind me. There's no one behind me, is there?
Guys.
I'm not getting clipped, am I? You got to just say you. Hey, I appreciate you connecting with me. I appreciate you sending this out. I wanted to share this video with you so that you know a little bit more about me. Doing things like that and connecting that way, and I think a lot of people are trying to come on and they're like, hey, Facebook world, or hey, IG, like all of IG is not watching you. Like we see the number in the corner. Like we know what's going on. Like just be honest. Hey, I know you're watching. I appreciate you watching. And I try to do that on my podcast a lot. I appreciate you guys turning in, or I appreciate you turning in versus the you guys. It makes such a huge difference in the personal connection. And more importantly, it to me, it's a little more authentic than just the, hey, you guys.
Yeah.
Like there are no you guys.
That reminds me
it's
of
one-on-one,
yeah.
you know?
That's right. And it's always better if you're going to send those videos too. I find even more next level that, all right, hey, Mike, you know, like make that video, make it, then attach it. So, and I mean, it's been 2 weeks since I did this thing, and I totally forgot I could have been showing all of these the whole time instead of talking about them. But we're getting some people chimed in here, and so that's really cool. I can show these kind of things. I totally forget about this. Normally I do things every day. You know, you got to get in there, but doing this every week, you lose a lot of stuff. But yeah,
so you're doing it. That's the important thing.
Yes, we're doing it. And then next week it'll come a little easier. But Joseph is a guy who believes in getting 1% better, and Joseph is a star at LinkedIn stuff. So I'm sure that advice and comment and observation will go not unheard. And
his video was awesome. That's the thing. I learned something from watching it. Right? I love the cuts. I love the way he had it in there. It was a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is great, you know. But like every time I see it, I'm like, this is the you thing. I'm like, that would have crushed it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, he's another guy who don't sleep, so I'm sure he'll be right on that. He's in the gym 3 in the morning.
Or he's gonna unconnect with me on it. Like,
no, he will not do that. He's not afraid of getting better. That's for sure. No one on my show, no one who chimes in on my show is afraid of getting better or of critique.
I love it.
Yeah, he was on actually my first show. He was calling guest for the first show before I got this video.
I think it's a great point, Jeremy. How many of us are sending out our social and saying, hey, rip me apart, right? Critique me. Tell me what's good. Tell me what's bad. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. You know. And I know you said your mom was on before I always get around. I'm like, yeah, my mom's always on. My mom liked every post. I had to tell my mom, can you please stop liking my stuff? I don't know whether or not.
Yeah, my aunt kept calling me. Oh, she said so. What do you call? She's good looking. Just go good looking. You're embarrassing me, Ma. You're embarrassing me, Aunt Kathy.
I'm like, Mom, I'm trying to see if this really works. Like, she'd like it, and then like 5 of her friends would like it. I'm trying to see if I'm reaching my core audience. Like I just.
So we have a lot of coaches on. Watch the show. I train and coach a lot of coaches, and in fact, my whole business has been pivoting lately to group coaching, group coach coaching too. Right, coaching the coaches in a group setting because it's just economy's bad, man, and people are trying to find out. How can I help people? But how to get started doing it. So I'm really applying my marketing messages, changing to entrepreneurs or executives who just didn't make it through this thing, but have 30 years of experience, 25 years of experience of growing companies and helping people. They can become a coach. Okay. If they can become a coach and take a system over and start helping, giving at the benefit, being the beneficiary of spreading their years of wisdom to younger people who could actually go out there and take that mantle on. What do you think the way to market, and reach these people for newer coaches to go out there and get new clients? And what was your struggles when you're starting to get new clients? I had a huge network. It wasn't as hard for me to transition from entrepreneurship to coach because I just had such a great big network. But for somebody who's starting out these days, like I said, there's so much opportunity. What do you think the best way to go about getting new clients are for new coaches?
I think, you need to figure out the difference between advice and coaching, right? And I think a lot of new people misunderstand that for 2 reasons. Number one, I think you need to know what your good advice is, right? Know what you could be giving out, and advice, give out for free. Put that on social media. That's the stuff you should be talking about. Too many people go right to the sale, right? Just give the good advice. Start putting that out. And then I think you have to look at, hey, if you have a wealth of experience in whatever industry, right? What was your thing that you were, your specialty? And then what were you really great at in that specialty? Develop coaching around that, whether it was training employees, whether it is, bringing up leaders, identifying, weaknesses or finding, where the leakage is in spending or whatever it may be. Find that one thing, narrow it down as consistently as you can to the one service that you offer. Can you do everything? Yes. But And I think that's the thing. Everybody comes out, well, all right, I'm going to put out these 6 things I can do and see which one people
That's great advice.
No, that's the biggest mistake. Go out and give advice on those 6 things. Give that out for free. But what do you do as a service? Hey, this is what I do. I come in and I look at your financials and I say, I'm going to be able to solve this. Because if you look at who's starting to win on social media, and you talked about, accounting before, right? Good friend of mine, Tyler McBroom, great accountant. I met him probably 5-6 years ago through a podcast, Facebook Live, just like this. Connected him with one of my clients, have developed a friendship with him over the years, and he's an accountant. All he gets on is talk about accounting for small businesses. And just by putting that content on social media, he's been able to speak on Tony Robbins' stage. Tony Robbins reached out to him. Damon John reached out to him and asked him to do something. And he wasn't trying to do this thing like, hey, I want to be on the stage with the biggest people, and that's my goal.
Like some of us.
Yeah. He was just consistently coming out and saying, here's my advice on accounting. Here's my advice on accounting to small business. And he's grown this just massive, and I've been able to develop a friendship with him, thankfully. But he's been able to develop a massive, accounting business by just giving advice for free.
And for free.
But then knowing the one thing he does really well when it comes time to sell. So he may be giving advice on stuff, but what he sells is one thing: accounting services for small to medium-sized businesses. Yep. That's it. Could he do more? Could he do scaling? Could he do help businesses and do social media marketing and teaching how to connect with influencers? Absolutely. But does he do any of that? No. He focuses on accounting, and that's where the win is. And a lot of coaches come out too broad in the early stages.
Yeah, that was a big mistake of mine, as a matter of fact. The platform.
I did it too. Guilty.
Yeah, the platform lends itself to it. So then you start telling everyone I can help everyone with everything. You can't help anyone. One of my old coaches, Kevin Snyder, talked about chasing 5 squirrels. You're not ever going to catch any of them if you're chasing 5 squirrels. And then Lisa Ryan is a speaker who I had dinner with this week. Christy and I took her to dinner. She was down here for a speaking engagement. And she talked to me about, we just had this exact conversation about how do you narrow it down, all right? And we're you got to whittle it down, maybe to 2 or 3 things. And then from there, kill one, marry one, F one. You got to come up with one. Which one do you marry? Which one do you kill? And then you got to pick one. And that's what you got to be known for. It's about that brand.
Yep.
Now, what Ray Leone tells us, and that's the guy who he came up with not click funnel, but lead funnels, sales funnels, doesn't matter what you do to get in the door, just get in the door. So that one thing will get you in the door. From there, you can go anywhere you want to go. Once they get to know you and like you and trust you, and they see they can know what you're talking about, they'll listen to you on everything else that's wrong with their business. But getting into that business consistently throughout the history from start to where you get that name recognition along, you got to go down to one. And that's definitely what I've been struggling. Thanks for watching that video segment. If you enjoyed it and like to see more content just like that one, click over here. If you'd like to see that video in its entirety, click over here. Thank you.